And I'm going to turn it over to Reid.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Reid Sullivan, in charge of the Mobile Entertainment Group at Samsung. I'd like to thank Dr. Schmidt and all the organizers of the Bright Conference for giving this opportunity to talk about one of our success stories. I'm going to stand up just because it's a little easier for me to talk and walk a little bit here. I think this goes that way. Let me just make sure I get this correct. Okay. So just a real quick background. So the genesis of DualView, Dr. Lee really did all the hard work. I had the honor and opportunity to bring this product to market, very unique product to market, so it was a lot of fun. Just to give you a little bit of a background, even before DualView was, the project was initiated, Samsung is very, very focused on winning, on leading, and in just about every category that we are targeting, the goal is to become number one. Very, very metric-oriented and targeted organization. But if we looked at the future, we needed to find growth engines. We've grown to a $120 billion company in 40 years, and exponential growth. We're used to that 20 or double-digit growth each year, which is not so easy. So in the case of LED TV or TV in general, we became number one in end of 2007 into 2008. In the case of Blu-ray, became number one just recently, home theater in a box. And then in the case of digital still camera, a big opportunity, but we're still trailing right now. And as Dr. Lee mentioned, the goal was to enter this category for a couple reasons. One is, how to find those new growth engines. The DSC market in the US is approximately $5 billion. So even if we could get 20% market share, it's an additional $1 billion of revenue. And if you look at the other categories, while they've contributed great growth, double-digit growth, each of those markets is starting to mature. So how do you find those next engines? But in addition to just the quantifiable opportunity of $1 billion in sales as an opportunity, it became a much more strategic initiative. And as it was alluded to earlier, it's much more about the emotional connection to the consumer. The earlier speaker was talking about the social networking, user-created content. And if we looked at the digital value chain within Samsung, very, very strong in TVs, number one, very strong in memory, number one, strong in cell phones, number one in the US. But we didn't have that beginning of that digital value chain, which was image creation. And again, it's a product category that connects emotionally almost more than any other category. So for a lot of different reasons, we wanted to enter this category. And you can see down there our target, consistent with our overall corporate goals, is to be number one. It'll take us a little bit of time, but 2012 is the target to become number one. So really, it was a simple idea, although I guess, as I said, Dr. Lee did the hard work. I have the easy job of bringing this great product to market. But so the intention of my next couple slides is to really share with you some of the impact that the DualView camera introduced in the US market has on our overall DSC business and our overall brand. So if the goal was obviously to raise the image of the imaging products. So we've been in the imaging market for decades, really. And it was a small division of a precise industrial division, so very, very small division of a big kind of military-oriented group within Samsung. And so, the challenges we had at the time before DualView was that, we weren't well known. It didn't get the resources, and so there was a high-level directive, if you will, to increase R&D and really focus on this category, but not just as a Me Too player. How do we differentiate? How do we enter it? So if you looked at where we were in the digital imaging space, we had very low brand awareness, as was indicated before. We had good value products, but they were not unique. They were kind of Me Too products. Our focus at the time was really under $149. We were strong in the mass. It was a big Black Friday brand or Black Friday promotional activity, but it really wasn't. We had no presence in the step-up market. So our API, which is the average price index, which is a ratio of the industry average price, was only 61. So 61% of the industry average price before DualView. So and mainly sold mass channels. We had a number 11 rank of market share. Now that, for a company that prides itself on being number one, and if you're not number one, the key question is, when are you going to be number one? Number 11 is not a great place to be. And then, as I said, new systems and processes that came from this small division. So it really was kind of acquiring a separate company, if you will. So I'm not going to go through this whole slide, but so the intention, with the great idea of dual view, everybody loved the idea. We felt we had a winner on our hands, and we made our presentation with ROI and all the metrics to top management. How do we get funding to do a big launch campaign? And the other thing that's great about Samsung, as big as it is that at the highest levels, decisions can happen very, very fast. So we went to S.J. Park, who's the president of the Worldwide Imaging Group, and asked for funding based on our plan, very quickly turned around and approved the plan. So we had a national TV campaign, a little bit of print, but we also had a full, the point of this is really a full 360-degree launch campaign. So PR initiatives, we had buzz initiatives on social networking sites, social media. Online marketing quite a bit as far as an additional CRM, email marketing, et cetera. And then we partnered very closely with our retail partners, well over 100, 150 meetings individually to convince them to sell or to position the Samsung step-up product where we had never positioned the product in the past, but to get behind it, to advertise it, to support it in their flyers. So a lot of different meetings back and forth. And then, the last 3 feet of the sale, in-store merchandising, we had displays, as well as, we trained and dispatched a dedicated DI, or digital imaging, task force into the stores to train the people on the floor about our product. So if you look at, there we go. So one of the key success, or the reasons for success of dual view was the fact that we, religiously followed, consistent use of materials. So we developed an iconic image, we call it, which was that dual view shot to, the back of the screen, the front of the screen, so that when we're in the dealer's ads on the Sunday flyers that you get, there was some consistency and it increased the expenditure we were already making on national media. So, we had the TV display, online, and weekly dealer ads that happens to be a Best Buy ad. The displays in the stores, which were very experiential and interactive. We had videos going to demonstrate the value, the benefits of the product, and then training materials, and a couple unique placements in the store. But as was mentioned before, we stayed away, and this is not easy from a product guy, we stayed away from the megapixels and the high zoom and the slim camera and the size of the sensors and all that stuff. It was really about the emotional connection with the camera and how this camera could make you a better photographer and get the photographer in front of the camera and into the picture, if you will. So if we look at just some of the key success factors for the dual view launch, single focus message, again, it was about the experience. It was about, picture yourself in the fun. So everything we did, all the marketing elements focused on that simple point. And again, consistent use of materials. Channel strategy. It was very difficult to fundamentally change our channel strategy. Before dual view, we were very heavily focused in mass. We had virtually no presence in the electronic superstore, the photo specialty channel, or any of what we would generally term as kind of the step-up channels of distribution that would help communicate the benefits and the value of our product. So when we're talking about selling a product that was more than double our average price and significantly higher than the industry average price, we had to make sure we had evangelists on the floor in retail. So choosing the channels carefully made a big difference in that regard. We also had a lot of SCM, or supply chain scenario planning. We didn't know how strong it was going to be, but we also didn't want to spend a lot of money on an ad campaign or a marketing campaign and then run out of stock and not be able to take advantage of it. So we went through a lot of scenarios with the headquarters and with factory as far as making sure that we had availability positioned in case it took off and be able to respond quickly if in the worst case it did not. Timing was critical, timing and coordination. So working with our dealers, hundreds of dealers throughout the country with well over 100 meetings, we timed it. We had what's called an ad embargo. So no dealer had ad dates earlier than a specific date. So the idea was when we did our press conference, all of our online media with our partners as well as our own went live. And then when we had our ad embargo date with the dealers, everything on that one day, that Sunday, everything went live. And it was a lot of fun when the day after our press conference in New York City, we had the president of the imaging group worldwide in our executive conference room. And so big TVs, dominating the center of the room and on both sides of that main screen. And we pulled up 20 to 25 of our dealer websites, and every single one of them was live all at the same time. It's an incredible thing that everybody had either a takeover or a full presence of the product. So really a lot of it was the timing and how it all came together to maximize the investment that we did make in the marketing campaign. Communication was also key. A big company, it's inevitable you have silos. The reality that for this project, and I think Samsung is better than most with this issue, but and there are still some silos, but for this project, we started the communications several months in advance. We had every major group as part of what we call all hands meetings. And so you had marketing, you had sales, you had service, you had finance, you had supply chain. Every discipline was there and part of the process from the beginning, and we identified roles and responsibilities and made it perfectly clear so everybody had ownership into the process at a really early stage. As we got a little closer, we had weekly calls, we had our weekly meetings, and we had calls with Korea, headquarters, and making sure that every single stakeholder was fully aligned with the project at hand. And then a just relentless follow-up. I mean, if a dealer was not thought of us as the old way, we're kind of a value brand, and they wanted to position us in a very low fashion, we would discuss with them and how we overcame that. So a lot of follow-up went into it. So the results, we still have a long way to go to become number one, but we're well on our way. So if we look at our share rank, and just went from number 11 in 2007, made some good progress. 2008, number 7 rank. In 2009, number 5. And so we expect to be number 3, a weak 3 or a strong 4 this year. There's a big gap between there. But Dual View had a huge impact on our brand image, the brand positioning, and our overall sales and market share and other metrics. So the API on the right is the average price index. You can see that we were very much a value brand, which is not consistent with the other categories in 2008. 2009, the full year was an 88% of average industry price. At the last quarter, so we launched Dual View in September. For the last quarter, we were around 100, and then for first quarter of 2001, which really is just ending now, we're around 104, so above the industry average. But a huge, those numbers, it's a huge transformation as far as how we were positioned in the marketplace. And if we look at our market share in the segment of between $250 and $300, which again, we were really 149 and below, in that segment in 2008, that's a 0.1, that's not a 1%. We had basically no presence whatsoever. We had a couple models, but basically no presence. In the fourth quarter of 2009, after Dual View was launched, for that specific quarter, we were number 2 in the DSC space with 22% market share. And the first quarter, we will end number 1 with over 26% market share. So a huge impact. Revenue, I didn't want to quantify, but double-digit growth in an industry that's actually down in 2009 was down about 15%. So we're picking up huge share based on the position of Dual View. But honestly, one of the biggest benefits of the Dual View campaign was that internally and externally, it fundamentally changed the image, the reputation, and the culture. So internally, we had, for many years, it was the sales team and marketing team that we kind of brought over was used to being number 11 or number 8, and so that was kind of accepted. And I can tell you that that is not accepted as far as the normal Samsung position. So internally, it showed that we could absolutely do it. And more importantly, perhaps, is that to our dealer partners and to outside elements, they clearly understood that based on the leadership and all the other categories and the same sort of roadmap we had in those categories, that this was the DSC for Samsung was an area to watch, and it really fundamentally changed their perspective of our company from a more value perspective. And that's it. Thank you.